I'm Bruce Curtis, the Chief Administrator, and on my right, extreme right, is Suzanne Murray, our President.
Good evening.
And our patron, the Honorable Iona Campanolo, and our guest speaker, Brenda Morrison from Simon Fraser University. This is the time each year when the Community Justice Center stops our work to create some space in which we can acknowledge and recognize all those who strive to create a more humane and an effective community. It is said that it takes a whole village to raise a child. It's also said that it takes a whole community to make a community whole. Tonight we are celebrating 15 years of this work, and so we have invited a wide set of very special guests and friends. A very special set of special guests and friends who share the dream and work with the center to achieve these goals. That's why they're here. So I'd like to start by thanking our patron, the Honorable Iona Campanolo, for joining us this evening in this celebration. This will be a special year for her, as she is celebrating her 80th birthday, and we will have a little sing-along to honor her after the dinner. You know the words? Is everybody clear on the words? Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. And the melody is fairly familiar. It's from Mozart or Beethoven. And also, I welcome as our guest speaker Dr. Brenda Morrison of the Center for Restorative Justice at Simon Fraser University, who will be more appropriately introduced a little later in the program. But firstly, the Center wishes to acknowledge the people who serve our restorative justice program as admin coordinators. Hands up.
No hands.
No hands. Well, one of them is in Berlin and one of them is in London, so that accounts for two. And the other, and one has just moved into a new house, so it has some renovation stuff to do. And then there are two missing in action, obviously. And our case coordinators. Hands up, our case coordinators. And our panel members. Hands up, all of our panel members. And our facilitators, people who run the resolution conferences. Hands up, all of our facilitators. And then there are members of the Board of Directors who oversee and maintain effective relationships on our behalf with the municipal councils and regional district board who fund our work, as well as the broader community. So hands up, members of the board and members of the regional district chairs and members of the regional board and anybody else like that. Thank you to all of you. This year we also have guests who provide venues and opportunities for our clients to carry out their community service responsibilities following a resolution agreement. So members of agencies who have some of our guests with them working to do their community service as a result of their resolution conferences. Yeah, very good. Welcome. Thank you. And also with us this evening are those who work in the RCMP, the loss prevention officers in the major retail stores who refer files, the Downtown Business Association representing the smaller shops and businesses who also refer files, and those from the school district who refer files involving students in conflict in the school setting. So hand up all those people who send us jobs. Well, some of them have retired. So we'll allow a couple of retired hands to come up here. Then there are a number of individuals who've done this work in the past and have now gone on to their just rewards. That's retirement. And they too are vital to the task of maintaining the high regard which this program has earned over the years. So I know we at least have our founder here. Very good. And others who have served on the board in the past or have been volunteer facilitators or panel members or coordinators, you can also put your hands up. Good. This year we also have invited a broad range of representatives from the partner groups who support our work in the area of combating racism, homophobia, and hate activity. These individuals from faith communities, the multicultural community, the social services sector, the GBLT community, the social justice community, have helped to extend the impact of the CJC's commitment to the development of a more open, responsive, and relational life together in the Comox Valley. So I'd welcome all of you to put up your hands and be acknowledged. New this year, as a result of a group of CJC volunteers' recognition of an important service gap in the Comox Valley for young people, are a group who provide essential caregiving skills to their relatives. These young caregivers often have difficulties in working with the system to obtain the services they need, and a group of CJC volunteers and others has established the Youth as Caregivers group, and we have some people from the Youth as Caregivers group here this evening as well, I think. And Larry Winter, who's coordinating that program, regrets that he is unable to be here as he's doing his final exam for becoming a certified facilitator at the Community Justice Center. So he's down in Duncan being tested to see if he's good enough. And of course, none of these individuals would be able to carry out their important work without the support and encouragement of the guests that they have brought with them this evening. And so we say a thank you to their guests for their contributions toward building a better world as well. So hands up all the guests. And so we are prepared to proceed to a fine meal prepared by the Black Fin for your enjoyment. And in keeping with a fine tradition begun last year by one of the center's directors, Kate Greening, we are quite prepared to accept small financial contributions to the work of the CJC for the opportunity to have your table come first. So, I'm advised by Kate that her table is offering to bid $50 for the right of free access first. Do we have any other bids from any other tables? Then I guess Kate Greening's table gets to go right after the head table. And then we'll just randomly go this table, that table, this table, that table, and this table. What? It was just random, Anne. Totally random. Totally random. In any event, the lineup goes through here, empty, and comes out here, full. So, I understand, Kate, and we'll right to it. So, you may head table to go and have dinners, and then famous people from far and wide want to send their greetings so that they can participate in the event. So we selected from the thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of emails that we received one in particular to be read out this evening. This is a greeting from Craig Oliver, senior political correspondent for CTV News, who regrets that because he foolishly signed a contract for a new television show on Sunday evenings this fall, he didn't feel he was in a good position to ask the CTV president whether or not he could skip the first show to be here. Otherwise he would have. But he did send these greetings. I greatly regret that I cannot escape my Sunday television duties to be with my treasured friend Iona and all of you tonight. When we grew up in Prince Rupert, Iona was the best looking girl in town. She is still, in the larger sense, the most beautiful person I know. Whatever Iona has taken on, whether as a federal cabinet minister or lieutenant governor, or her many commitments to environmentalism and human rights, one thing has run through her career. She has left every position she has ever held better than she found it. Iona believes in a world centered on justice, compassion, and sustainability. I have always felt honored to be part of her world. Her friendship has been a privilege and given more, and even more than that, a pleasure. Best regards, Craig Oliver, Senior Political Correspondent, CTV. See you soon.
Yes, you know he's blind. He loves being blind because all the women remain beautiful and all men remain honest.
This year we begin our celebrations with a problem, not unlike that of the Reverend Mother at the beginning of The Sound of Music. How do you solve a problem like Iona? She has now served her 5-year term as our patron, but instead of retiring, she has accepted a further 3-year term. In less than a month, she celebrates her 80th birthday, but she hasn't provided the list of gifts that she would secretly love to receive. The directors considered a number of options for honoring her special birthday and her service as our patron, and came to the very wise conclusion that the gift should be enchanting, enhancing, engaging, and enduring. Upon further thought and consultation with other friends of Iona, it became obvious that the requirements for such a gift for our Ambassador of Restorative Justice could only be met with a thoughtful reflection on the nature of our organizational practice of restorative justice and building a better world. Two themes very close to Iona's heart and to her life's work. So it had to be enchanted. In a few moments, we'll introduce our speaker for this evening, Dr. Brenda Morrison. Her diverse background and experience has been the warp, and across these theoretical strands, the weft of the work that we do has been woven. It is this web of connections which helps her and makes her a truly enchanting speaker. It should be enhancing. This evening's presentation will speak of many things, but it will include Brenda's reflections on the significant and powerful roles that community volunteers play in the vital work that we do in partnership with the whole Comox Valley. Brenda will in part enhance your understanding and estimation of your roles in the community through a deeper understanding of their significance, and also enhance you personally through a deeper understanding of how highly valued you are as a part of the community of volunteers of the Community Justice Center. It should be engaging. As director of the SFU Center for Restorative Justice, Brenda operates at the forefront of RJ practice and research, and her presentation this evening will consequently be highly engaging for us as RJ volunteers in this community. It should be enduring. And so now, the directors of the Community Justice Center. Not a bad trick, eh? Are very pleased to announce that the CJC's gift to our patron on her 80th birthday is the inauguration of an enduring annual lecture series, which will serve as an ongoing opportunity to enhance and engage the Comox Valley in the continuation and renewal of this work, and all those who commit their time, energy, and voluntary service to the practice of restorative justice and building a better world. Like the annual Massey lectures delivered on CBC for the past 50 years, the CJC will, each year, invite a leader in restorative justice and related peace-building work to present an original consideration of the issues, concerns, practices, and theories and solutions that inform and advance our work. It is hoped these annual lectures will make significant contributions to public awareness and understanding, and further the development of the arts of restorative justice and building peace in our community and around the world. So now I would like to invite Suzanne Murray, President of the CJC, to introduce Dr. Brenda Morrison and invite her to deliver an inaugural Iona Campanola lecture on restorative justice.
Thank you, Bruce. Honorable, most honorable patron. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brenda Morrison is a co-director of the Center for Restorative Justice and an assistant professor in the School of Criminology. She is a social psychologist with field experience in outdoor education, government administration, and restorative justice. A particular focus of her work relates to school communities and the institutions that serve these communities. Her teaching and research interests include transformative and restorative justice, school violence and safety, conflict and cooperation, shame management and social identity, the self and self-interest. Dr. Morrison teaches courses entitled Introduction to Restorative Justice, Restorative Justice Praxis, Safe Schools and Communities, Restorative Pedagogy and Practice. Dr. Morrison is co-chair of the Safe Schools and Communities Special Interest Group of the American Education Research Association and a member of the Scientific Committee of the International Observatory of Violence in Schools. She has also chaired many panels on restorative justice and schools for the World Congress of Criminology, as well as a number of other associations. She is a research partner with PrevNet, Promoting Relationships Eliminating Violence Network, within Canada's networks of Centres of Excellence. In British Columbia, she is a member of the Working Group for Social Responsibility and Collaboration Learning in Education. She is an active board member for the North Shore Restorative Justice Society. Please welcome Dr. Morrison as she delivers the inaugural Iona Campanula Lecture on restorative justice entitled Journey to Belonging, Identity, Ritual, and Justice.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's always exhausting listening to those bucket lists of...
That's who you are.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you. It's a real honor for me to be here. And thank you for all your work. And thanks to Bruce for inviting me. It's really wonderful to see you again and for inviting me here. And most of all, thank you to the communities. Really my honor to be here. And Kate, I really like your dress house too.
Food is important.
So it's really wonderful to be here. I'm a real advocate for community-led approaches to addressing the harms and creating just communities and just societies and a just and peaceful world. And it was wonderful flying up here because I got to see the wonderful place that we live from high above and all the little islands and the little communities. And I thought about all of them because we truly live in a really beautiful, beautiful place and we have lots to be thankful. And I was wondering which First Nation I should acknowledge.
Comox.
So I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of the Comox First Nation, and I thank you. I spent a lot of time away, and almost 15, 20 years away. And I really didn't realize what I was missing until I came back about 6 years ago. Because it really is beautiful British Columbia, so we have lots to be proud of here. And when I was young, I used to spend a lot of time on Quadra Island, and so we used to always pass through the Comox Valley, and so it's a place that I always think about because we had friends in Parksville and different places in the Comox Valley, up in Buckley Bay and Fanny Bay, all those bays, and it's really lovely. And now I have my own children, and we have a sailboat, and we sail by your fair shores, heading up to Desolation Sound this summer. So it's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really an honor. So thinking of children, often when we're children, or we have small people in our lives, we ask them, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And I think it's a question that we should always ask. Who do you want to be? My friend and colleague, Robert Cito, sat across from a man and asked him, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? This man had murdered his sister. For me, this question, who do you want to be? Indeed, who do we want to be? Goes to the heart of questions of identity and justice. Indeed, to the very question of belonging. And these are themes that I would like to address tonight. These themes of identity, belonging, and justice. And it's with these themes that I like to honor the lifelong work of Iona Capanola, who wanted a place for everyone to belong. Addressing the challenging issues of racism, homophobia, challenges of First Nations' place to belong here in British Columbia and beyond, and upholding human rights for all across the realm of many marginalized groups. And she was ahead of her times because she recognized the strong values of communities in addressing these injustices. And this was challenging and important work. And it's our job to carry on the work that she began. So it came to no surprise to me that she's now the patron here in Comox. So you're very lucky. So I'm back to this question of who do you want to be? Robert was participating in a face-to-face conference, a victim offender mediation process with community justice initiatives, one of the other, the early community-based restorative justice groups here in the province. And Howard Zare, one of the grandfathers of restorative justice, described these face-to-face encounters as a journey to belonging. He characterized the practice of restorative justice as a journey to belonging, with the journey to belonging involving a journey to identity, the two being intertwined like a double helix. I listened to Howard a number of years ago. I think it was in the year 2000 when I was first working in this field. We were both in Tübingen, Germany. He had come from the United States where he worked, and I had come from Australia where I first entered the field of restorative justice. And he began his talk with a warning, because the intertwined double helix he spoke of related to both victims and offenders, or those we call victims and offenders. And he knew that some would find this offensive, that these journeys would happen in tandem. This double helix would happen in tandem between those who had harmed and those who were harmed. But these journeys were very necessary. Each journey informed the other's journey. And he characterized this journey to belonging for both who had harmed and were harmed by a number of legs. He talked about a journey to meaning, a journey to judgment, a journey of honor, and a journey of vindication. In terms of the journey of meaning, or to meaning, both victims and offenders, and I'll use those terms in quotes, are engaged in meaning making as they navigate their journeys back towards belonging. And they often, in their own different ways, are feeling isolated for different reasons from their community. Sometimes they're different communities, but sometimes they share a common community. And through these respective feelings of isolation, through that particular event or conflict. They experience trauma. Different types of trauma, but trauma nonetheless. Because both are experiencing what Howard Zinn called the 3Ds. And these 3Ds characterize the experience of trauma. They experience disorder, disempowerment, and disconnection. To move from trauma to healing, he then went on to argue back in 2000 that we need empowerment for both, we need order for both, and we need connection for both. Both need a community of care. So back to meaning. In isolation, trauma involves the destruction of meaning, of who we are and where we belong. In other words, it's the destruction of our identity, who we want to be in the world. It also defines our identity of who's in and who's out. To heal, we must restore ourselves. Both victims and offenders need an opportunity in the context of the community that they belong to restore themselves. A journey to belonging is a journey characterized by restoring. And in the field of restorative justice, instead of focusing on the facts, we allow people to tell their story. And this is a transformational journey that moves often from shame and humiliation to courage, dignity, and honor. But to navigate this journey, there's a parallel journey, and often one that comes before the final vindication. Because this is also a journey of judgment. Judgment is also related to identity. Through our judgments, individuals and communities, we decide who's like us and who's not like us. Who's in and who's out. Who are members of our in-group and who are members of our out-group. We stigmatize and shame those who are not like us. And these judgments are also relevant for the victim and the offender at a micro level. They're about ourselves, because in isolation from our communities, we often look inward, with victims making judgments that blame themselves for what happened to themselves and often their families and those who love them. As James Gillikin noted in his work as a prison psychiatrist, this is the same as true for the people we call offenders, who we often outcast from our societies or our communities. They often hold stories of victimization before they offended. They are also looking inward, traumatized by their own experience in the world. And then again, judgment moves from to a social level in terms of defining these in-groups and these out-groups. And in defining these in-groups and out-groups, the stories fracture. Often, what the story that one group holds is very different than the story that the other group holds. And then our court system magnifies this further when people sit on either side of the courtroom, where we don't tell our stories, but we stick to the facts. We leave our emotions at the door. We look for a different type of order in our world. And then the judge or the jury make the ultimate judgment on behalf of the state. So the offender gets their just desert. And in that process of sitting in the courtroom, the victims and the communities are marginalized. Their voices are not heard. These judgments allow these judgments enable our institution to honor some, but not others. Journey to justice, journey to belonging must also be a journey to honor. And through this journey that we're navigating as victims, offenders, and communities, we must move through a lot of emotions that are often barred at the door of the courtroom. We must move through shame, be you victim or offender. We must move through humiliation. We know through the work of James Gilligan, John Braithwaite, and many others that internalized guilt and shame keeps us isolated from others and fragments our identity. And isolation and fragmentation and internalized shame drive shame rage cycles. We keep reproducing the shame and the rage that's internalized. We know that victims can often become offenders. This is particularly true in cycles of bullying in schools, where they flip. I spent a lot of time in Ferndale Institution, a minimum security prison. I try to go once a month on a Wednesday evening, where we have a circle group, a community-led circle group, and every single one of those offenders was the victim of bullying in school. We need to stop this cycle much earlier. And in terms of bullying, we often frame bullying as an institutional problem that requires an institutional solution. We want the administrators of the school district to do it. I think we'll get further because the evidence base on addressing bullying in school is quite marginal. We're not moving anywhere fast. But our best evidence says instead of focusing on the victim and the offender, we need to put more resources on the school community as a whole. Bystanders stop bullying. The school community stops bullying, not the administration. So it's better, I believe, if we frame bullying as a community problem that requires community solutions. There's different ways we need to shift these shame rage cycles. And I've done a lot of work on the mass shootings in the United States following Columbine. But they're still continuing, and they're continuing in different forms. Recently, a number of experts were asked what drove James Holmes to kill 12 people and injure many more at the theater massacre at the screening of Dark Knight Rising. Professor at UBC, Don Dutton, commented just a few months ago that the time is right for us to talk what it means to belong. I couldn't agree more. Belonging is a social need as much as human rights is a social need. We must acknowledge people not only as individuals, but members of social groups, and that we have a right to belong somewhere in our social world. This process is not easy. Vindication is also an important part for those who have suffered harms in our communities. And the process of justice that we take on can detract or aid this journey of vindication. And this idea of vindication, at the heart of this idea of vindication, people like Howard Zare or James Gilligan would say, it's the idea of reciprocity. We are social animals. We give what we receive. So we can trump violence with more violence, or we can act with compassion. When we act with compassion, we get compassion back. We have two neurobiological responses to things that threaten us. And they act at different levels of our visceral system. We can attack back through a fight or flight response, or we can move to our higher level visceral system and act on our instinct for compassion. in our Introduction to Restorative Justice course, at the heart of that particular course, we juxtapose our instinct for retribution with our instinct from compassion. The problem is, today, is that our social institutions legitimate, prioritize our instinct for retribution over our instinct for compassion. So we have these rituals that we enact through our social institutions, through our through our communities, through our schools, and we have to decide which ritual we want to vindicate on behalf of those who are harmed in our communities. Do we want to reinforce and reenact the ritual around retribution, or do we want to reenact, legitimate, and put forward a ritual around our instinct for compassion? Right now, the state vindicates our reciprocal just deserts through our penal code. In doing so, we legitimize the instinct for retribution over restoration through compassion. And this takes me back to shame, because we're perpetuating the shame and shaming and internalized shame of those caught up in this system. A colleague of Howard Zerr once said, "Shame is often the prime suspect of what makes us punitive in society, both at an individual level and an institutional level." Restorative justice seeks vindication at a different level, face-to-face. And I believe in face-to-face, you can find the inner strength for courage and compassion. Unlike in a courtroom where we set up lots of divides in terms of who sits on either side of the room, and also divides because we have a lot of third-party decision-making opposed to first-party decision-making. And we have to think carefully about these processes, about who's in, the haves, the have-nots, the in-groups and the out-groups, who's like us, who's not. Because right now, the divide between the haves and the have-nots is widening every day. We see it starkly in Vancouver, where I live. And with James Gilligan once did a study looking at what perpetuates violence in any society. And he says it's not an absolute, that we shouldn't look for absolute levels or indicators of what's driving the violence and blame just one thing. It's a relative thing. And he said the best predictor of violence is the gap between the haves and the have-nots. So we need to think at a systemic level, and the rituals that take place within our social institutions. Rituals of retribution break us down. They're the 3Ds that Howard Zerr talked about. They respond to disorder, they disempower, and they breed disconnection. We need rituals of restoration that build us up through empowerment, a different type of order, and connection. We need rituals to find belonging within our institutions. And belonging means looking at school classrooms as communities. Communities within the school, and the range of communities, because we're not just one big homogeneous communities, we're layers of communities, and it's negotiating that fabric and those layers that's important. Some of my strongest experience of belonging happened when I was an Outward Bound instructor in Australia. Outward Bound experiences are designed to challenge us, just as our school systems are designed to challenge us. And in these tight groups, as an instructor at Outward Bound, interaction rituals emerge. And when we got it right, the outcomes were amazing. So I'm going to tell you a little story about one of these journeys I was on. Again, I'm using the journey metaphor. In these this one particular outward bound course, the idea was to go, it was a 26-day course, and we had to go from Kosciuszko Mountain, the highest mountain in Australia, down to the mouth of the Snowy River. It's going to take us 26 days. And I was the instructor, and I had 12 participants with me, and we were making this journey. 2/3 of the way along the course, this one young man, he was in his mid-20s, he came to me and he said, "Guess what, Brenda?" I said, "What is it, John?" He was really happy, delighted. He says, "I can't wait to tell you. I haven't taken my lithium for 3 days." I'm like, "Oh my goodness. That's really exciting. I can see you're really excited, John. Why haven't you been taking your lithium?" "I don't need it anymore." Excellent news. Do you know where we are, John? Yeah, we're right here on the map. Can you see the closest town on the map, John? Yeah, it's over there somewhere. John, have you thought a lot about what would happen if you needed the lithium and you weren't on the lithium? If you're manic, that might be okay, because I could probably find you and we could use all that energy and we could get you up that next mountain. But what if you went the other way? What if I couldn't find you? Not only is that going to create a lot of problems for you, but there's other people here, John, and they have a whole different set of, they have an expectation that we're going to make it to the mouth of the Snowy River. That's what they want to do. What happens if we don't get there? What happens if something goes terribly wrong? You can see he was like, "Oh, something's different here. Maybe I should." I said, John, and John, that's a lot of responsibility on me. I really can't manage that alone, and really I can't police it. I'm not going to jam those little lithium pills down your throat. I said, "I have a suggestion." And this is where the community comes in. I said, "We're going to take what you just told me. We used to circle up around the fire every night. We're going to take it back to the group, and I want you to tell them what you just told me. And then we can make a decision about the right way forward." And so he did. And in the end, he agreed that if any one of us thought that he needed to go back on his lithium, he would go back on his lithium. No problem. The remarkable thing is, he didn't have to go back on his lithium the rest of that course. There was a strength within that group that held John together. I'm not going to say it will always work, but I had that experience, and other outward bound instructors have had that very same experience, that when everyone matters, when no one is disposable, when everyone belongs and has a place and is working together on a common goal, out of that sense of belonging, individuals become stronger, they become more resilient, they become resourceful. It nurtures our common humanity. If we get it right, we find a place for everyone to belong, we'll all be stronger. That inner strength is being called ontological security. Ontological security emerges when we have a strong sense of the I, of the we, the identity. When we belong, we have a well-supported self. In contrast to this inner security that we feel when we belong strongly, when we have a place, what we're trumping up in society is the type of security based on external forces. We ask for more police, we ask for more cameras, we ask for metal detectors in schools, particularly in the United States. And these processes externalize the problem again and corrode what we're calling ontological security. I'm learning a lot about ontological, big word, huh? I'm an academic, I'm sorry. This idea of ontological security, because there's a lot of interaction rituals when we were small, when in our small village life, around music and dance, that helped us build and sustain ontological security for individuals within our community. Music is a visceral, and dance are visceral experience that unite us, that bring us together. And we're exploring these themes in a very exciting conference that I hope you'll join us at SFU on restorative justice and the performing arts. We're bringing in great composers from England. Some of them are involved in the Olympics, amazing dancers, and musicians. Because we want mediums that can speak to us. Injustice is a visceral feeling. We need visceral mediums to explore them, to engage with them, to engage, the people that aren't here with these ideas. We need different mediums to start exploring what it means to belong and what it means to experience injustice. I'm going to tell you one more story. Do I have time?
A little bit.
Okay. So, when a number of years ago, I was an outward bound instructor, and as I told you, and I went up to Everest Base Camp. I went up one valley with a bunch of people, and then I crossed a valley by myself, and I went on a solo journey. I'd always wanted to go up to the base of Everest. And then descending, I was traveling by myself, and you'd stop off at these tea houses along the way. And I'd get up early in the morning, I'd walk along, and then one morning, I was walking and I heard someone behind me, and for every step I took, they took another step. And at first I felt like I was being stalked. Oh my goodness, and I was feeling all those tingles all over. I was on high alert, and I kept one step and another step, and then I just sort of stayed present with what I was experiencing behind me, and then I decided that this person wasn't stalking me. This person was my shadow. He was my safety shadow. He felt worried for this crazy young woman just hiking in the mountains all by herself. And I must have been walking too slow, because eventually he sort of apologized as he stumbled, walked by me saying, I gotta go. And I kept on walking, and later very late that day, he saw me in the same village. And he was really happy to see me, that I was still safe. A number of days later, I was on my last day hiking out of the mountains, and there was a lot of commotion in the village, and you could tell there was lots of things happening, and then eventually this one man stood out, and he said, we don't want you to walk alone today. I'm like, wow, here I thought I was on this great solo journey. And meanwhile, I had many people taking care of me. And he didn't say, I don't want you to walk alone today. He said, we don't want you to walk alone today. And I think that we went right up that valley to the very top little tea house I stayed in. There was a community watching me, because they don't have police. They don't have courthouses up there in Nepal. They only have each other. So somehow in our transition from village life to big city life, and maybe all the way back to the time of William the Conqueror, that we, when we stand up, that, when there's harm in our villages, that the harm is not against each other, but against the state. And the contest is really the offender against the state, this huge abstract state. That somewhere between there, we've lost our communities. So I thank you for bringing the communities back into our life and addressing injustice. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Brenda, for that fascinating and enchanting address.
I tried.
I appreciate it. And just for a moment here, I'm going to ask our president if she would draw 3 tickets from the jug in front of her and have those 3 individuals come up and receive their door prizes. So this is what those blue tickets were for.
181385. All right.
Get it?
Yes, 385. You want to come up with 385? I also have 181357. All right. And I also have 372. 181372.
Way to go.
So the next section of our evening is the presentation of the bronze awards for 1 year service, first year of service to the Community Justice Center.
The first bronze award is Christine Colbert. Christine Colbert. And then Monica Heyman. And Staff Sergeant Andrew Isles. And Suzanne Calger. Suzanne. And Wendy Lindsay. And Hugh McKinnon. Thank you, Hugh. Very nice. And Claire McDonald. And Ross Moxley. Ross. Bronze award. Wrong one. And Thomas Pater. Melissa Thiessen. And Stephen Turpin. He's here.
He snuck out. He had to go get his kid from
Hooking up.
Somebody's playing hockey. Silver awards, Phyllis Farquhar, Tara Field, Alice Grange, Catherine Grant, Dean Gray,
Frank Law can pick up his. Unless you-
He is on business in Calgary right now, so I'm the representative.
Kenwa, thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you. That's his honor. Thank you.
And Dean Gray, and Kenwa, I'll give you Dean's too.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes. And Christina Knight, facilitator Christina Knight, Mary Lang, panel member, and Shirley Lewis. Thank you very much, Shirley. And the gold awards. Cindy Hill. Tara Cooper. Angie Thank you so much. Congratulations. Angie, well done. Congratulations. Dennis Evans. Phyllis Giovanetti.
She's in Europe.
She's in Europe at the moment.
Vivian Gorange. Monica Gruberg. Doug Hillian. Jan Irvine. And Serena Patterson. Well, I'm sorry, but congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you very much. One more.
The 10-year long service award.
10-year long service. Shona Fallon. Thank you so much, Shona, for your contribution to me.
Thank you. Congratulations, Shona. Thank you very much.
Evelyn Forbes.
I didn't recognize Evelyn.
So much.
She has that back support. Good stuff. Well,
These two are together, Walter Jordan and Haida Jordan. That makes 20 years of service. Thank you ever so much. Well done. One more. A very special award tonight, a fellowship citation, Dr. Brenda Morrison. An assistant professor of criminology, Simon Fraser, elected fellow of Community Justice Center on September 23rd, 2012. Oh my Dr. Brenda Morrison
You're loud. We'll let you.
Restorative Justice in British Columbia through her role as co-director of the Center for Restorative Justice and assistant professor in the School of Criminology at Simon Fraser University. She is an internationally recognized scholar in the area of social psychology with field experience in outdoor education, government administration, and restorative justice. A particular focus of her work relates to school communities and the institutions that serve these communities. Her teaching and research interests include transformative and restorative justice, school violence and safety, conflict and cooperation, shame management and social identity, the self and self-interest. Her teaching in these areas, including restorative justice praxis, safe schools and communities, and restorative pedagogy and practice, has contributed to significant advances. Dr. Morrison has been recognized for her research by her peers for her roles as co-chair of the Safe Schools and Community Special Interest Group of the American Education Research Association and as a member of the Scientific Committee of the International Observatory of Violence in Schools. She has also chaired many associations. She is a research partner with PrevNet, Promoting Relationships Eliminating Violence Network, within Canada's networks of centers of excellence. In British Columbia, she is a member of the Working Group for Social Responsibility and Collaborative Learning and Education. On behalf of the Community Justice Center, I hereby induct you as a fellow of the CJC, entitled to all the rights and privileges appertaining thereto.
The only thing that matters the only important part is that communities matter. That's what I'm doing across all those different institutions. That's the message. Thank you so much. I
Yours
feel so
insisted it all
honored.
be read so that you know why this award was made. Now he has a further small hint.
In addition, we would like to present you with a copy of a limited edition print by one of our most famous local artists. And this was commissioned by the Justice Center for the signing and community witnessing ceremony of our critical incident response protocol. And of course, the title of this work is Belonging.
It's all belonging.
The sailboat will be docking soon.
Free rides on the coast. Three more.
Okay. 181352. 352. 181356.